If you don't feel like you're practicing enough, or you tend to avoid practicing, perhaps you're feeling demotivated by it all. Or maybe you've got a lot of things going on in your life and you've let guitar playing take a back seat. Staying motivated to learn guitar is key to persevering and getting through those plateaus that you often might find yourself in, like I am now. It's inevitable that this is going to happen during your guitar playing, and you're going to get plateaus every now and then. But how do you deal with it? Everyone has different ways of dealing with it, and sometimes we can get through it ourselves, and sometimes we need a bit of motivation to get there. So today I'm going to share some of the tips and tricks that I've been adapting and using over the course of my learning to play guitar that might help you. So let's get into it. Anytime you come across a song that you really want to learn, then learn it. Don't be afraid to incorporate that into part of your practice. Some of the best progress I've had is where I've gone, I absolutely love that song, I'm going to get into it now, because you really focus down on it and get into the detail and break it down, pull it apart and get to the point where you're able to play it at speed. A new song will often challenge you. It might be some new techniques, it could be some chords that you already know, but the transition is different from one to the other, so that means your hand has to get used to it. In that way, it's another thing to sort of challenge yourself and push your guitar playing on. Trying out something new within your guitar practice routine is an excellent way of mixing things up and keeping yourself motivated. For example, I've just started some lessons with a guitar teacher, and he started to incorporate some funk strumming into my practice schedule, and I hadn't done that before. Not only is it good for my rhythm, but it's also good to learn a new chord and new techniques and getting some 16th note strumming. I'm struggling with it, but if you're not struggling, then you're not learning, you're not progressing. But it's a good way to mix with all the other things that you might be doing, and just to give you something fresh to look at. Now, leading on from that, if you haven't got a practice routine, then I'd say set one up. Once you've got some structure around your goals, then you're more likely to succeed, because every night you're working and chipping away at your overall goal in terms of what you want to play. If you haven't checked it out, I did a video a while back about my guitar practice schedule, where I was building it around the artist and the inspiration for my playing and the style that I'm pursuing at the moment. So if that's something that you really need to nail, check it out. It's well worth getting into, and create your own schedule. And that way, every day you know you're chipping away towards your overall goal. Play with others if you can. Now, I haven't done this in the past. I've only just started having lessons, but this is something I want to be doing in the future. Obviously, it's difficult for a lot of people right now due to the current world circumstances. But when you can, even if it's online, getting that ability to jam with someone and just bounce ideas off them to help you improve is a great way of improving and motivating your guitar playing, because you've got someone to practice with every time that you meet up with them, and every time that you go away and practice, you're always trying to improve so that you can obviously accompany each other in a much better way and enjoy the jam that you have. Another one that walks a fine line is don't force yourself to play. Now, if you're not playing at all, then it's not good. But if you're playing heavily and you find you're just not getting it, then take a few days off. Give yourself a break. I've learnt this the hard way over the Christmas break and took a few weeks off, and I came back to it and I feel really refreshed, and I'm really positive about learning now. And all the techniques that I found tedious before, now I see as, right, now this is going to get me to where I want to go. And that's all because I took a break. So it's important to do that. And don't put that pressure on yourself to go, oh, I have to be this good. The next point I have ties in with the guitar practice schedule that I mentioned earlier. If there's artists that particularly inspire you and there's songs that you love by them, then you can use that for motivation and definitely incorporate those into your guitar practice schedule. The next point is learn things that you like. Don't learn the things you don't like. Seems obvious, right? But sometimes you get stuck playing some scales or a song you're not really interested in. That's not going to motivate you. Make sure that you're learning the things that you love. And that ties back into the schedule that I was talking about earlier. Creating a schedule around, your inspiration, a particular style of playing that you want to play right now. Because if you built it around that, when you're bolting on some extra songs for some more motivation and they're in a similar style, it's just compounding your ability around that particular style of play. The next one I've just learned about in this last week, and that's about if you feel over-challenged by learning a song. Right, so I've felt like this for quite some time. I've been trying to learn Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and for the love of me, I just can't get it how I want it. And what I've found by having a lesson with a guitar teacher is like, you just have to break it down further. And when he said that, I was just like, that makes so much sense. Why didn't I even think about it? I was trying to rush through it. Simple parts like a slide or a hammer on and a pull off, where I was having to keep the rest of my fingers on the fretboard, was difficult for me. But as soon as I started practicing and how he recommended, i.e. breaking it down, it started to make sense, and that will come to me over time. The next thing I would say is practice in kind of isolation. So take away all the social media elements that are going to distract you from your playing and focus in on what you're doing. Seems kind of obvious this in day and age because you know things are going to distract you. But if you've got some like notifications popping up your phone when you're practicing, it's just going to take your mind away from it for a few seconds. And not only will that take away some of the enjoyment of playing, it will also obviously affect your ability to get the fingers ingrained in that particular exercise or song that you're learning. Another great tip is to end on a successful moment. So for example, if you're doing a particular technique or song and you're getting it and sometimes you're not getting it, just end on the one where you get it right and stop there. Yes, you might feel there's more in the tank and you want to carry on, but if you stop there, the next day, you just really want to get back straight into it because you know you had some success at the end of it. And it's a great motivating factor every day if that's the way you want to do it. And talking of momentum, momentum comes about from doing things that motivate you, that you enjoy playing. And over time, that builds and builds and builds. Now mine slowed down at the end of last year because I was concentrating on one thing. I wasn't mixing up what I was learning, and because of that I've kind of stalled a bit, even though I was learning something I really wanted to learn. So if you're learning different bits and pieces and you're obviously trying to push each of those on, then the momentum will come in different areas. Some areas will develop, some will be a bit slower, some are faster, but no matter what, you're doing something that is progressing your playing, and that's the momentum I'm talking about. Once that kind of snowball effect kicks in, then you'll really just feel motivated every day to play. Another thing I'd say was balance. Now, I was guilty of going too far with just trying to learn one song, and also other people have been guilty of putting too much into their guitar practice routine. So obviously if you play through, you're going to work it out over time what you need to have in your guitar practice, whether or not that's a couple of items or lots of items if you're doing them in short periods of time. Whatever works for you, but just make sure you have that balance, because doing one thing, it's solely, or too many things, is not going to really motivate you every day. You might actually find it kills your motivation a bit, and you won't feel like you're progressing as much as you like. So it's all about getting that balance, and that balance really comes about through doing it, incorporating new things into your guitar practice schedule as you go along that maybe are related to what you want to learn. This balance can also incorporate things that aren't exactly what you're learning at the moment. So for example, I'm doing kind of Frusciante, Mayer Hendrix stuff. This is really what I'm focusing on. Frusciante had a real background and interest in funk. I'm doing some funk strumming patterns. Now, what he's doing in like the Red Hot Chili Peppers isn't essentially all funk, but there's some elements to it. So what I'm learning outside of that is kind of complementing it. But it doesn't have to be that. I'm really interested in fingerstyle too. I've picked up the acoustic recently, and I'm playing some finger-picking style songs, and I'm really enjoying that because I've got a good mix now in the guitar practice schedule, and that really motivates me. So I'd recommend doing that if you've become a bit too fixated on one thing and your routines become a bit stale. Lastly, I want to say that all these ups and downs of learning are natural. Sometimes it feels overwhelming, like it did for me, I was talking about a few weeks ago in my last video, and sometimes you work through them quickly. That's just the way it is. But as long as you persevere and keep going, you'll get through them. It's a natural part of learning guitar. So I hope this has helped, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.